Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Danish Lotte Petri is a best-selling crime writer. She spent several years as a marketing manager at the business organization Danish, which is based in the Stock Exchange building, before deciding to write crime novels. Lotte made her debut in 2009 with the crime novel The Fifth Plague, for which she was nominated for the Danish Bank Debutante Prize. This led to 3 more books in the so-called Selma series about biological terror, weaponized bacteria. She has written the popular series Black Notice, which has been translated into 10 languages, and she's behind the popular Storytel original series Blood Angel, which is published throughout the Nordic region and translated into English. While writing the series, she consulted Professor Emeritus of Forensic Medicine Hans-Peter Huggen, who helped her add realism to the forensic scenes in the series. While working together, they discovered that they were a good match, and that is where the idea to write the crime series The Predator originated. 3 volumes are currently published, and more to come. For research, Lotte works closely with the police and forensic pathologists. She has also worked closely with a Danish forensic anthropologist, who inspired her to write the Josephine Jespersen series, starring a female forensic anthropologist and bone expert, where the first book is called The Devil's Work. Lotte is a mentee of producer Joan Lane. She has developed a film manuscript and pitched for The Devil's Work with Joan's guidance. And Lotte is a board member of the Danish Academy of Crime. Coming up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Lotte Petri. Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for the meeting. And I'm in Denmark. Close to Copenhagen.
Okay, so now let's rewind. At what age, whether as a child or teenager or later, did you think, okay, I want to be in the literature world creating stories, and how did that journey progress?
I was working as a marketing manager, and at the same time there was the Mohammed crisis going on, where there were some drawings broadcasted in the Danish television, which led to an enormous crisis. An Islamistic threat was very close to Denmark. And then I thought, how difficult could it be to write a crime novel about that topic? And so I did. And then after 2 years, the novel was finished. And then I quit my job and it became a bestseller. Of course, it was a long journey during these 2 years, but it was fun. And now I've written 15 novels, I think, 16 and counting. Yeah.
So when you wrote in that 2-year period, the first time you were writing a novel, what aspects surprised you that were part of the process that you did not realize would be going in?
I think that doing the research was a bit difficult for me because I didn't know that many Islamic terrorists. So I had to use my imagination. How is a terrorist thinking? And then it was a bit difficult topic because I wrote about anthrax, and it was you almost had to be a doctor in order to understand that world. But it was interesting, and my father was a doctor, so in terms and knew a little bit about it, so I succeeded, I think.
Your novels that you've written, you've had series, you have had different sort of avenues in that space, mainly in the crime world or the terrorist world. Why did you think, okay, I want to focus in this area of literature?
I myself love reading crime novels, and I love, Silence of the Lambs and the very brutal crime fiction series and books. So I don't think I'll be very good in writing love novels. I myself has to find it interesting in order to write about it.
If you don't find it interesting, then you'll get bored and then you'll stop halfway.
Yeah, exactly.
When writing a novel, how much percentage of your time is taken up between actual research and actual writing?
Well, I always visit the crime scenes to get the inspiration, and I talk to forensic pathologists and visit the morgue in a hospital in Copenhagen. And I have interviewed some of the most prominent police officers in Denmark in order to be on the right path to make it right the first time, because I think it's not professional if you don't ask the experts for advice, and then you get a lot of free descriptions, and you don't have to think, is it green or is it red? Is it how does it look? How does the floor look? How's the ambience? And then you get some good friends you can call and say, "Hey, I got this problem. How can I kill her in the best way so nobody will ever find out?"
So basically, your stories are all fiction, but you take inspiration from real life happenings.
Yeah, it could happen in real life, but it is fiction.
Which is scary, but
I like to be very close to that limit, just because I'm not that fond of being alone in a house in some wood or forest, because what can happen out in the garden or in the forest? So in a way, you get very close to the killers and their minds, and it's not just imagination. They are out there wanting to kill somebody. Yeah.
You said you've written 15 books and counting. What keeps motivating you to say, okay, let's do another one?
I don't know what else to do. It's kind of I really like it. Of course, not every part of the process. I'm not very fond of finding misspellings and so on. I like to start a new job up. That's the fun part.
So when you get to the parts that you don't like, how do you motivate to say, okay, I'm going to just get through this to get to the next part?
Well, I know I've done it before, and I will do it again and then get it over with, so you can start a new book.
Have you ever had the challenge of writer's block? And if so, how did you deal with that?
No, not really. Of course, sometimes you get a problem when you write something, and then to figure it out, you have to give it a certain amount of time. And then all of a sudden, while you're in a shower or driving your car, then the solution of the problem will turn up, and then you write along. It's very important to write every day and to be in close contact with your manuscript, because if you take a vacation or if you leave it for a month, then it takes an enormous amount of time to get back to it. So that's the secret.
That's a secret, to stay next to it. Now, you referenced earlier that the first book took 2 years. From inception of idea to completion and the actual book on the shelf, is it always a 2-year process, or does it depend on each situation?
I'm quicker now than my first novel. I had to learn to write the first novel. It's learning by doing. But now, I'm very I know the routine, and I'm just doing it, and I have a very nice editor who helps me, and we are in contact almost every day, talking about how to solve that problem, how to get further. And she says, "Oh, how many pages have you written today?" Not "How are you, Lotte?" No, "How many pages have you been doing your homework?" So.
Do you write every day, Monday to Sunday, while you're doing the writing process?
Well, I don't write every day, but I have some sort of contact with my manuscript, or I talk to an expert, or I visit a place. I work with it every day, yes. But of course, I've maybe shorter period where I can't work with it, but I have to. I should do it every day.
Have you ever thought of creating scripts for any of your books and allowing them to become movies or television series?
Yes, I have adapted two of my novels, The Devil's Work and Black Notice, into manuscripts. And I've been mentored by Joan Lane. She's produced The King's Speech, and she's very clever and has helped me writing a pitch deck and found some faults in my English manuscript because I'm Danish. I'm not, perfect in any way. So there are also always misspellings and so on. But I think there's very fun process because my writing, I write in scenes. It's not a written novel in that way. It's more like a manuscript for a movie or feature.
Okay.
So they say that's not something I decided. That's just my way of working.
And have they already been produced into series or movies? Or are they still in the process?
No. That's my hope.
Okay, let's put it out there. Let's put it out there. The fact that your novels are more like manuscripts, did that make it easier for you to, besides the spelling and stuff and the language differences, but did that make it easier for you to wrap your mind around saying, okay, I'd like this to also be potentially a script for a show?
The intention was to write good crime novels, but now I find it interesting to adapt my novels into film manuscripts because I know all about the main characters. I know all about the environment. I know all about what's going to happen, and I have 10 ideas of multiple episodes. So it's about kind of developing your script into something more visual.
When a lot of books have been transferred into visual, into television or film, there's a lot of differences, like this character is different to that character in the book. How closely have you kept the novel to the manuscript for the film or television?
Very close, actually. But I think it's because that my novels are written a little bit like a script, as we talked about.
Okay.
But of course, you have to, if you have a book, it's only a 10th part of that you can put into a manuscript. So you have to reduce and delete.
Yes.
And keep it tight. And that's something you can practice. It's not difficult, actually, because I know what is going on in a scene. I just have to narrow it down into a very concentrate.
Now, for anyone who is thinking of starting to write books and they may be a little bit challenged or hesitant, what advice would you give them?
There's a very known slogan called "Just Do It." I would say trust yourself and then write it, and then get the most clever people you know to read it and give their comments, and then listen to their comments, and then watch movies, read books, and then find maybe an editor who can give you some advice, and then just start sending it out. And if you get a no, then ask why, because you get more and more clever, and then find a publisher who publishes books in your genre.
You referenced earlier that you shared your books with people, clever people to read and to give notes on. Were there any situations ever where someone suggested something and you didn't feel it was right for the character or right for the book, and you just stuck to your guns?
Did I understand it right that I refused their advice?
Not that you necessarily refused, you just
sorry,
took it
I
on
couldn't
board,
hear.
and because it didn't feel right for the journey of the character or the journey of the story, you stuck with where your gut was telling you to stay.
Yeah, I can literally feel when something feels wrong, that you shouldn't go this way. But if the clever reader says something, there's always something wrong with that text. You have to review it or to rewrite it. because normally people they stop for a reason and they wonder for a reason. So you should always listen. Maybe it's another problem in the text. So actually now I have two very clever women reading through my manuscript, and they have lots of notes, and I'm listening to all of them, but it's not everything that I change, because then the whole fundament of the book will fall apart. That's not so so good. So you have to do it very gentle.
What are you currently working on now? Are you working on your 16th book? Are you allowed to tell us what you're working on?
Yeah, it's called, how do I pronounce it? It's called The Stalker, the next book. And the one I've just finished is called The Slaughter. The Butcher.
The Butcher. So The Butcher, is that already out, or it's still finalizing publishing?
No, it will be out this summer. But it's about a ritual made by the Vikings, cutting a blood eagle. And that means that you cut somebody from the back and take out the ribbons.
Oi.
And then lungs, and then hanging the poor guy or girl from a tree. And it looks almost like wings of an eagle when you sort of tear out the ribbons.
Wow. That's interesting.
Don't do this at home.
And then The Stalker, how far are you in with that process?
Not very far. It's actually was inspired from a true crime. I think it was on Netflix, about a stalking episode that's so twisted and full of twists and turns. So it could be a novel, actually. Watching a lot of Netflix and listening to true crime podcasts, Up and Vanished, and what they're called, in order to get some inspiration every day. And then I take a little bit of each story and shake it, and then make it into a history.
Shake it like a salt and pepper shake. I like that. Now, so The Stalker, when do you think that'll be coming out? Next year, the year after?
Oh, it should be. I should be finished in August, so it'd be next spring in a year. I have to be quick, so no crisis here.
Lotte, the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message to the audience, what would you like to say?
Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you didn't get frightened from all this this eerie and creepy talk. For me, it's normal. Well, the best movie I ever watched was Silence of the Lambs, so that's my genre, and I think it's a very popular movie, and I'm looking forward to hear all your podcasts also, and have a happy day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.